Je m'appelle Antoine Gosselin, je suis étudiant au baccalauréat en communication humaine et organisationnelle à l'UQAM. Je ne sais pas pour vous, mais personnellement, c'est impossible pour moi de me connecter sur mes comptes Facebook ou Instagram et ne pas voir de memes. Les memes sur l'actualité du jour, les memes mettant en vedette des animaux ou des scènes du quotidien auxquelles la majorité peut s'identifier, il y en a toujours 2 ou 3 sur mon fil d'actualité qui semblent juste attendre que je les regarde. Ces memes-là varient grandement, passant du plus général au plus niche que l'algorithme met de l'avant en ciblant mes intérêts. Les memes que je vois apparaître sont aussi souvent politiques et militants, soit partagés par des partis et des groupes politiques eux-mêmes, ou par des groupes militants. Des événements comme l'insurrection du 6 janvier 2021 à Washington aux États-Unis, ou même les événements du convoi de la liberté à Ottawa durant l'hiver 2022, permettent de constater de l'importance des memes dans l'existence de plusieurs groupes politiques, non seulement comme forme d'expression, mais aussi comme forme de recrutement, alors que la culture visuelle centrée sur les memes de ces groupes facilite la transnationalité de ces derniers, comme le mentionnent Dafford et McSweeney et al. Le caractère immatériel des nouvelles organisations d'extrême droite nécessite selon moi de s'intéresser à comment ces dernières s'organisent en ligne et comment l'imagerie que ces dernières véhiculent contribue à l'organisation par la désorganisation, concept central du balado d'aujourd'hui, à la communication vient en parlant, le balado qui te fait mieux comprendre le rôle de la communication, et ça, une conversation à la fois. Nous allons donc aborder en quoi les memes contribuent à l'organisation de ces phénomènes et comment la désorganisation joue un rôle clé dans l'organisation de ceux-ci. Nous aurons aussi la chance d'avoir en entrevue un chercheur s'étant penché sur le sujet et d'explorer avec lui comment la réalité politique actuelle rend ces questionnements encore plus pertinents. Avant tout, il s'agit de mieux comprendre comment les memes permettent cette organisation par la désorganisation. Les Internet memes sont définis par Winkler et Seiffert Brockmann comme des unités culturelles virales transmises par le biais d'Internet. Le chapitre de Winkler et Seiffert Brockmann permet d'aborder la capacité organisante des memes et d'ainsi questionner l'émergence de ces groupes et mouvements politiques. Il serait donc intéressant de se pencher sur comment ces différentes communautés instrumentalisent les memes afin d'hériter l'ordre établi et de s'organiser à partir du désordre et de l'incertitude qui résulte de cette irritation. La prise d'importance des memes dans ce rôle coïncide d'ailleurs avec la montée du populisme dans plusieurs régions du monde et avec l'émergence de mouvements sociaux s'organisant principalement, voire totalement, sur Internet. Cette décentralisation entourant les memes est d'ailleurs mentionnée par Winkler et Seiffert Brockmann, qui souligne en fin de chapitre que les memes sont difficiles à étudier et prospèrent notoirement dans les milieux clandestins, comme les groupes d'extrême droite ou les mouvements terroristes et révolutionnaires. La place de plus en plus importante qu'occupent les memes sur une quantité grandissante de médias sociaux témoigne d'ailleurs de la pertinence de ceux-ci en tant que forme d'expression subversive. Dans leur chapitre, Winkler et Seiffert Brockmann soutiennent que les memes fonctionnent en contournant les structures traditionnelles de communication et en créant un espace de contestation subversive. Les memes sont des formes d'expression populaire sur les médias sociaux et possèdent un fort potentiel de viralité et de propagation, ce qui en fait un outil puissant pour la communication en ligne. Pour Winkler et Seiffert Brockmann, les memes sont un moyen de perturber l'ordre établi. En effet, ces derniers soutiennent que la désorganisation résultant de l'existence du meme permet la création d'une nouvelle organisation qui s'organise à partir de la désorganisation elle-même. Dès lors que nous considérons l'ordre comme une tentative de réduire l'incertitude, les memes fonctionnent de manière inverse en amplifiant l'incertitude et en s'organisant à partir de celle-ci, puisque chaque meme érode un peu plus la signification originelle et accroît l'irritation. Lorsque le meme hérite l'ordre établi, il contribue donc à l'émergence d'un nouvel ordre le remplaçant, expliquant donc comment ces derniers s'organisent à partir du désordre. Dans leur chapitre, Winkler et Seiffert Brockmann mobilisent d'ailleurs les exemples de 2 memes, soit celui du Hope du président Obama et celui du président Trump, signant son premier ordre exécutif. Le chapitre permet ensuite de constater du travail d'érosion de sens originalement attribué aux images, ainsi que de l'émergence des nouvelles significations dont ces 2 images ont été sujettes. Afin de creuser un peu plus loin sur la question des memes et sur leur rôle dans les questions touchant l'organisation des groupes politiques et plus précisément des groupes extrémistes tels que ceux ayant été au cœur des événements du 6 janvier 2021 à Washington ou du convoi de la liberté à Ottawa en 2022, nous accueillons un des co-auteurs du chapitre Organizing from Disorder Internet Memes as Subversive Style, M. Peter Winkler.
So my question would be, what would you consider to be a great example of memes destabilizing social norms or discourse today?
Yeah. I mean, there are two interesting discussions of memes, because my co-author actually came from the side of this meme concept from evolutionary psychology, which is much more a constructive reading of memes, so more or less traveling ideas which stick in certain communities and thus generate certain change in society. So a very productive reading of it. And my perception of memes was a bit different when writing this chapter, because I thought, okay, actually the source that organizes memes and meme-making collectives is actually subversion and destruction of an established authority. And still, the two examples we took were, in a sense, very moderate forms of subversions, I would say, from today's perspective, because also the idea how we discuss memes today under an umbrella terms of post-truth and radicalization and polarization, it has turned into something very different. And I think this holds true for the entire disorganization debate per se. So I would say when this book was published 5 years ago, this organization, from a postmodern perspective and also very much building on the work of Cooper, was seen as something productive, or at least innovative, something that challenges existing authorities. I think the discourse has changed over the years, also given the practical changes, particularly in party politics, that we see, okay, these can become very, very useful tools for counter-organization memes, for recruiting and for radicalizing people. So if I would write this chapter again in 2023, I think the empirical example would be much more radical. And I think it could be much more interesting not only to look at connotations like what we call it villain and wise and what's the association, but I think many of them could be sorted with regard to what are the underlying conspiracy theories, for example, that travel with these memes. What are the counter narratives that are positioned in these memes? So there are authoritative readings of certain things, and you can find memes all over the place that are challenging and subverting fact-based communication, for example, that are challenging established authorities, that are challenging democracy, that are challenging science communication and scientific evidence and stuff like that. So I think it would be a more critical piece today if I chose still sticking to the example of internet memes. And if you look at memes more broadly, in the sense of how do certain ideas, which not necessarily have to be much depth or foundation. So then you could even go further, I think, because if you think about how are actually conspiracy narratives crafted, it's very often just one suspicion, another suspicion that adds up, or just doubt, one doubt given the other, and it travels around, and then it becomes by its own disorganization very organized. And in the end, you have something that is, from a constructivist perspective, very shaky, because it has no, or from a logical perspective, also very contradictory in itself, but still it's something that is able to mobilize people and radicalize people and also polarize them to a certain extent. So that's how I would do it today.
That's great. No, that's really great, because it touches on some interrogations I had concerning because you treat this very well in the article, that the fact that they have memes have a high potential for virality. They're spread. Anybody can author them, and I think, if I remember correctly, it's Kuhn you're citing when you say that it's when I have it here. It's when like memes actually address its speech for when it falls on deaf ears, and that little sentence really resonated with me because to me I feel that, especially with the rise of populism that we see all across the globe and radicalization, it has to come from somewhere. And you said it very well in the article that it actually provides an alternative stream of communication that is outside of the traditional media realm. And I'm just, to me, because I know, like, here, especially in America, we talk a lot about alt-right, the Proud Boys, the 3%ers, but I know in Europe there are some ultras also, like some ultra radicals. I know I'm pretty familiar with Ireland, so I know in Northern Ireland there's still some animosity, and memes are being used to basically as propaganda. But in your opinion and in your knowledge, do you know of any other type of like clandestine groups that are using memes and that are basically organizing from the disorder that memes provide?
Yes, definitely. So in continental Europe, so Austria, where I am from, I don't know if you know, but probably you know about it. Jörg Haider was from Austria, so one of the key figures of populist right-wing policies, and Chantal Mouffe published a lot on him as a core example, and already in the 90s she predicted, okay, the way how Jörg Haider did it will become a role model for entire continental Europe, and that's what you can actually observe. So they studied how these FPÖs, so this Freiheitliche Partei Österreich, how it became very influential. And at the moment, for a year or so, particularly during the COVID years, the FPÖ became in every polling the strongest and the leading party in Austria for more than 2 years now. So they have always been with a very clear background in Nazi history. They have become the leading party in Austria now. You have the same in Hungary. You have a very strong right wing in Germany, which was always unthinkable because they dealt differently with the history than Austria, so they confronted themselves to a certain extent, but they have the AfD, for example, and they have become establishment to a certain extent. They are parties, they are also established in the parliament, you can vote them, so it's basically legal what they do. But the interesting part is, how do they come up with new ideas and trends? And what you can find there, they are very, very attentive to what's going on the web, and they are listening to clandestine groups, also forbidden groups. It's called the Identitären, an identity, or the identity movement, if you want to call that. And in Germany, Reichsbürger and stuff like that. So there are a few of them. They are at the very margins of what is legal. And many of them have also a clear radical right-wing background, jail background and stuff like that. And their memes become the fodder of what right-wing parties propagate in more moderate terms. For example, there's an excellent paper, I have to look it up, by, I think, Ulrike Klinger in Germany. She did it together with Lance Bennett about how the AfD really strategically uses these clandestine mindsets and ideas in order to develop them into something that becomes part of their party program, or at least of their politics. So this could be a nice fit, how a meme and pure disorder becomes very organized and even formalized by established parties. So that's what you can observe. And I think the same is true, for example, for how Trump did it with Proud Boys movement, and also with all the stuff going on 4chan and Breitbart. I mean, this was the same relationship in a sense. So he was very attentive, and he had his support teams who told him, okay, you have to spin this idea, and at that moment this one, because it directs attention to what you do.
Thank you very much once again, Mr. Winkler. It's been really an honor. I hope to see you again.
Cool. Fine.
Merci d'avoir été des nôtres pour ce balado. On espère que ce projet va susciter la discussion chez vous et vous amener à réfléchir autrement. Si vous avez aimé cet épisode, partagez-le et découvrez les autres émissions sur votre application d'écoute préférée. Je m'appelle Antoine Gosselin et n'oubliez pas que la communication vient en parlant. Le balado qui te fait mieux comprendre le rôle de la communication, et ça, une conversation à la fois.